Oh, hey, folks, Dude here. Coming to you. Let me look at my camera settings here real quick. It's just a tad dark. Let's see if I can't bump this booger up a bit. Let's see here. And we have to probably cheat something because it's now kirking out on me. Let me try bumping that up just a little bit. Oh, that's better. Maybe just a tad. All right, that's good enough. At least you can see both eyes now. All right, so anyway, looking at the way, shape, and form, we find ourselves now, well, along for the ride with the rest of the imminent stupidity coming from the auspices of the federal government, the screaming memeites, and all the many multitudes of people who go, oh no, where are authorities? Because we read something. I am completely and absolutely unimpressed with all the falderall coming out, all the way, shape, and form of all these guys saying that, oh yeah, we know what we're talking about because we're in the know, we are in the loop, and we have been those guys. I'll tell you, part of the problem is the government has been the foremost, complete bunch of jackholes who have completely screwed the process up from day one concerning anything virus related. Reason being is they've done all kinds of duplicitous stuff. Working with the World Health Organization, who pretty much is a carnival of whores. There's no real reason why you should be faking COVID numbers. There's no real reason why you should be saying, okay, this guy who's been a cancer sufferer for 10 years came down with COVID, and yep, that's the reason why he died. He had COVID. COVID's the reason why he died. Never mind the fact that his immune system and his body was so completely racked with cancer that he was pretty much circling the drain to start with. And it really wasn't going to take much of a push to knock him off the edge of the precipice to, his ultimate demise. Part of the problem is also just follow the money. There is a lot of money to be made doing this. Case in point that even Mrs. Dude is kind of a convert now with, immediately after this thing started up and I started reading stats, my statement from the very beginning of this thing has been, yeah, it's not a very good virus. And she's like, yeah, well, this, that, and the other thing. It's like, it's just not a very good virus. I mean, you look at the stats right now, and I could throw pictures and stats and all the rest of this fun stuff. But here's the most glaringly obvious thing about COVID-19. The stats currently are stated as this. It's ramping up like crazy for, cases now contracted of COVID-19. The mortality is like a slight, very slight increase, but pretty much a flat line. So what does that tell you? Well, number one, it tells you it's not a very good virus. Number two, it tells you the mortality on this virus is really like 3%. I mean, oh yeah, it's such an aggressive virus. If you even think the word COVID-19 next to a person that doesn't have it, bam, they got it. Just like an STD, you just look at that chick across the room and she's got the crud. Not the way it's going to be. So case in point, we find ourselves now with the screaming memeites going, oh, no, we need this new vaccine. This new vaccine is a fix. It's got to be the only way to fix the problem. We need the virus vaccine. Never mind the fact that chloroquine is efficaciously applied. When you apply it as a precursor to addressing the fact that you might get this virus, classically, it's known as prophylaxis. Like you're wearing a prophylactic so you don't catch an STD. Well, prophylaxis in the medical community means you are doing something to keep from catching something. Hello, STDs are viruses. Hello, you do prophylaxis. You don't catch the virus. Translation, if you're wearing a Jimmy on your Jimmy hat, you're not going to get stuff in your Jimmy from the gunya on the female that you happen to be interacting with. You do not collect an STD, which is basically a virus. You know, of course, they put the big scare in everybody about AIDS and all the rest of this fun stuff and blah, 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 blah. Those numbers have been flat, man. It's been very, very uniquely expressed as, you know, they made the whole big show about AIDS and how much it's going to just interact with the rest of society. Those numbers have been flat. Do you even hear about AIDS anymore? No, you really probably don't. Unless you know somebody who's unfortunate enough to contract it through the usual means of interaction. Read like drug and intravenous drug users and read like homosexual encounters where they're not using protected sexual practices. Okay, COVID-19, even though it's airborne and it's basically just, you know, droplets and whatnot, you basically spreading it to somebody else. I've had conversations with people before on airplanes. Here's the technology, okay? You have your airplane. I'm simply just going to use Mr. Water Bottle here. You have your airplane in transit, okay? Your airplane at sea level is at 14.7 pounds per square inch of air pressure. When your airplane goes up to 30,000 or 40,000 feet and starts flying in a standard flight path, the air pressure is way, way, way lower. Now, let's just put this in perspective. It's at 30 to 40,000 feet, whatever it is, cruise number. And they put it up there because that happens to be the most just efficacious way to cruise. You get the most efficiency. You're not burning as much gas, fighting air. You're now at a good cruise altitude. That's 40,000 feet maximum. 29,000 feet, we'd like 11,000 feet below that is Mount Everest. You can't breathe and survive on Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen, or you just crash and burn. There's been numbers of people that have climbed to the top of Everest, crashed and burned, and didn't get back down. Was it because of too much oxygen or not enough oxygen? No, it's because the human body's not made to survive at 29,000 plus feet in altitude. So, conversely, when that aircraft is at sustained altitude and cruise, it is a pressure vessel. Now, anybody can do this, and there's a reason why I grabbed this water bottle. If you get on a plane, the coolest thing that you can do, and I've done this with kids that have traveled with me, you take a water bottle, and obviously you open it, you drink it before you take off. You get into the plane, you go to altitude, you open the bottle. It hisses because there's a pressure difference. The pressure difference of an airplane at altitude is like 8,000 feet. Now, most people, if they're sitting sedentary, it's not an issue. It's reduced oxygen content, obviously, because the air density is quite a bit lower. But you're not running around and doing all kinds of aerobic things where you're really going to go, oh, man, I'm really feeling this altitude. I'm getting altitude sick. And there's a reason why they do that. It's because you don't need to have 14.7 pounds of air pressure at 40,000 feet because people survive just fine at 8,000 feet, probably down here, 8,000 feet. Now, here's the thing about it yet again. Anybody in the business will tell you an aircraft is a pressure vessel. It is a pressurized atmosphere because if you were at 40,000 feet, you couldn't survive the lack of oxygen. Now, I'm going round and, dragging this thing out for a good reason here. The aircraft at altitude of 40,000 feet at cruise is pressurized. Well, you can ask anybody in the business, do airplanes float? No, they don't. And there's a reason why. It's because they're not airtight. They're not intended to be airtight. Those two big engines or four big engines on the wings that are spinning up and making air pressure, which is really all a jet engine is. It's a big-ass vacuum cleaner. Sucks in air, pressurizes the air, mixes it with fuel, spits it out the back, generates thrust, and spins the guts of the engine. In the process of doing that, it makes quite a bit of air pressure as a bypass air into the cabin. Excuse me, got an allergy thing going on. So anyway, that air pressure that goes into the aircraft is now pressurized. It's not pressurized to 14.7 pounds at sea level, but it's pressurized to 8,000 feet of simulated atmosphere. Now, in the process of this plane being at altitude and simulated 8,000 feet of air pressure, there's way less air outside than there is inside. Everything that's in here is getting squirted out. Now, you can ask anybody that's air staff on an aircraft, And it's like, you really worry about getting sick? And they're like, not particularly. There's too much air moving around from front to back, and it's constantly swishing. There's little nozzles that you can open, you get air right in your face. Yeah, there's a reason why they do that. They want you to move air through the aircraft. More air equals more pressure, equals more oxygen, which equals more people being comfortable at flight level, and they're not going to have a problem with suffering, altitude sickness or anything along those lines. And people don't suffer altitude sickness because in their infinite wisdom of flying supersonic and subsonic and, of course, flying at high altitudes and, all the rest of that good stuff in commercial aircraft, they figured out that 8,000 feet is a comfortable compromise for most of the population. If you need supplemental oxygen, yeah, you can bring a tank on board. You can be sucking on the tank as you're flying. That's not going to be an issue. Of course, FAA regs are good with that. That's all necessary stuff. If you get a medical thing and you make sure they know about it. Now, I'm going round and I'm dragging this thing out for a very simple reason. The virus does not stay in a high-pressure vessel. It flies out all over the place and basically gets spat out. As a matter of fact, like I said, the air staff, when they complain about things, is not getting sick. Mostly they complain about the fact that everybody on board goes, oh, this is a perfect time to unload. And they start breaking wind like cows in the pasture. You can ask anybody that flies as air staff, and they're like, oh, yeah, the worst thing is everybody farting their brains out. Is I'm in the back of the plane going, oh, just stop. Knock it off. Oh, dude, seriously. Literally, that's the problem because the air goes from the front of the plane to the back of the plane, and it basically doesn't gather, but it goes that direction of travel. Literally, the plane's going front to back. In air travel, air in the plane is going from front to back, exhausting out the back of the aircraft. You ever seen those cute little holes in the back of the tail? Well, that doesn't just house the APU or the auxiliary power unit. It also houses the exhaust of going out of the plane. Planes leak like sieves for a very simple reason, is they're trying to get the air out of there. They want fresh air in there all the time. Fresh air is easier to contend with than going, okay, we have this stale accumulated carbon dioxide buildup of a couple hundred people all breathing. And if you look at the stats, the average human being consumes a lot of cubic feet per air per day. Well, if you start talking like 5-hour flights and you combine that with like 200 to 300 people, that's a lot of air. You have to take that into account. Obviously, the pilots in the front of the plane, they're getting first grabs, but everybody else after that is getting the secondary fresh air, which have been obviously run through filters and what have you. And that's the other thing, too, is they're going on now about, oh, these are HEPA filters. There's no viruses or anything like that. Dude, at 40,000 feet, there is no freaking viruses, okay? First and foremost, it's the jet stream. Second off, you're talking about higher up. UV radiation is just flat out frying the viruses. Technology being what it is, viruses really don't travel well from continent to continent in the airstream. No matter what zombie movie you've seen online with the current streams of viral load flying around the airspace, it just doesn't work like that. People contribute to one to another for virus infection. All right, so now looking at this thing as for what it is, me convincing Mrs. Dude. Even Mrs. Dude is like, yeah, these numbers are crap, and I'm not believing this right now. I mean, if nothing else, here's the thing. Do you want to take on something that is efficacious and seen as safe? Read chloroquine, which is over 65 years in use, efficacious, seen as safe. And when you do your prophylaxis, you are stopping yourself from getting the virus like Trump did. Trump took chloroquine because he wanted to make sure he wasn't going to get COVID-19. That's the way you take it. You get it in your system. You don't get the boogies. After the fact, you're doing catch up and you're hoping you kill the boogies. So here it is. Nuts to butts is for what it is. There's a lot of bad information going out there, and there's a lot of really stupid politicians jumping on board going, yeah, free money, woo! Team Answer, dude, appreciate you coming on in. So anyway, I'm basically just going roundy round on this thing, but I wanted to touch base on this stuff. The idea of shooting people up with a newly constructed virus is bad juju. Now, here's the other thing, too, and this really, really makes me mostly not even want to even get that crap stuffed into my body. But a very simple reason is, well, here's the deal. The vaccine has something called MRC. So I read Mike, Romeo, Charlie, 5 in it, which is aborted fetal cells and other DNA. Viruses that contain MRC5, and you happen to be a Catholic and you don't support abortion, you can tell them, get that crap away from me. You have a right to decline any virus containing MRC5. Now, the other thing, too, is also you can ask them, is there a iatrogenic reaction, which is an adverse reaction caused by a multiple compound or drugs interacting with each other from the vaccine? Well, the problem is all vaccines cause a iatrogenic reaction. When the doctor says, yes, it does, you can say, thank you so very much, don't want this crap. You basically can throw these things at the doc, and you can say, look, does it contain iatrogenic reaction, or does it contain MRC5 in it? And both times the doctor's going to say, well, technically, yeah. It's like, you know what? I don't want to do that. So you can tell them, if you do give me this, is this going to void your Hippocratic oath? And the doctor's going to go, well, technically, yeah. So looking at stats and looking at numbers, if you don't back abortion, which is MRC5, and you don't want the iatrogenic reaction, on both those cases, you could tell the doc, don't stick that thing in me, dude. I would rather just simply have chloroquine. Give me my script. I will take, 400 or 500 milligrams once a day or something like that, twice a day. I forget what the exact dosage is. But the other thing, too, is also follow the numbers. Chloroquine has been around 65 years. It is a generic med. They don't make any money on it. This new vaccine, which supposedly Russia's come up with, it contains MRC5, and it's got iatrogenic reactions. You don't want that, okay? Trust me on that one. You don't want either of those things. So anyway, coming up on the 17-minute mark now. But I appreciate your kind attention. I'm going to break up with this one. Virus, bad stuff. Do the research, okay? Do not let these guys stick this crap in your body when there's simple, easier, safer medication out there. And that's the other thing, too. Most of your medications, in terms of like research and what have you, and vaccines and what have you, they got tons, and I do mean tons of years of all kinds of technological testing on groups of people, reactions, secondary effects, and all the rest of this fun stuff. You don't just take a virus, trot it out 6 months later, and go, yep, here's the stuff, slam it home. You don't do that. And anybody that takes this virus right off the bat, I'm just going to sit back and watch and see what happens. So when they start mutating and having other bigger problems, you know that the virus that you might have gotten is not nearly as bad as the stuff that you just stuck in your body, and you do have. On that note, folks, I'm going to break up with this one. Eat good, keep it tendering. As always, you know what you love it. Yours in liberty, and this virus stuff is way overblown. It's not nearly as bad as what they say it is. Yes, I wear a mask when I'm doing Uber and Lyft. Why? Because it's part of the company regulations. Do I take it off as soon as the person's out of my car? Oh, you flipping bet. I don't like wearing it. Maxi pad on my face. All right, folks, on this one, I'm going to break off. I'll catch you guys later. Eat good, keep tendering. As always, you know what you love it. See you guys later, and have a good one. Catch you guys. British.